My Battlestorm Stalingrad documentary series is now 42 episodes long, which is just shy of 30 hours of history content. The script is 261,320 words long, if you don't count the next episode, number 43, which is currently being edited and animated. Yes, the series is not over, there's at least another dozen or so episodes to go. I've no idea because I've not written them out yet. This is an ongoing process, but it is by far the most difficult thing I've ever set out to do. Stalingrad is killing me, both physically and mentally. It's a battle of attrition, and in this video, I'm going to show you what goes into making these videos because that's what two of my patrons asked about years ago. I've delayed answering them because at the time my animation process was terrible, and after years of experience I've gotten a lot better, things have changed, the software is different, etc. So this video will be superior to anything I could have made years ago when these questions were asked. So forgive me for the delay, but hopefully you'll be getting a good answer today. The blank page is something a lot of people struggle with. But it doesn't matter if you're writing fiction or non-fiction, the reason why the blank page is so intimidating is because you've not done your homework. In order to build a house, you need bricks, which other people have made. So in my case, I start with the most detailed author I can find on a given topic. For Stalingrad, it's David Glantz. He's the glue that holds it all together because nobody else comes as close to the level of detail he provides. For the North African Campaign series, it's a combination of Playfair, the official British history, and Barry Pitt with his Crucible of War books. They are the most detailed. So what I'll do is I'll work my way through their books line by line and make notes. These notes will contain anything I think is relevant. A lot of the time I'm quoting entire paragraphs if the author does a great job of explaining something and I can't really condense it down any further. I'm looking for unit positions, statistics, how the author interprets the battle, really anything I think is relevant to telling the story. This process can take weeks, it depends on the battle. In the case of Glantz, it took months. I started recording the number of words I was typing up on the 1st of May 2017, at which point I already had 71,000 words of notes in the bag. Bearing in mind that I was still working in retail at this point, doing a more than full-time job, but I went through Glantz's series and reached 352,000 words by December of that year, before moving on to other authors. But the research wasn't over. I had done Glantz and some of the other authors, but I realised that this project was too big to go through every author and research every part of the battle. So I made the decision to go episodic and then research each episode in turn as I went through the series. What I do now is take the notes I made for Glantz, I copy portions of them over into a new file depending on what period of the battle I'm covering, rearrange them so that they're in order, then condense or cut out irrelevant bits so that it flows better. Google Docs has the ability to make notes on the side, which is absolutely essential. I've learned that instead of saying this unit, this unit, this unit, this unit, and this unit all went to so-and-so, I can just say the Soviets advanced, and then list those units and locations on the side, then actually show you the units and where they advanced during the animation process. It cuts down the amount of words but provides the information to you on the screen. It may seem obvious, but when you're in the weeds, it isn't always. I learned that I didn't need to put all the information in the script itself. I could use the visuals of the video to show what was going on, and then use the script to tie it all together. That's actually something I'm still working on, making the script flow better for narrative purposes, but still providing the information to the viewer in one form or another. I'll give you a simple example from episode 42. The script says, outside the pocket, Hollett officially created his new headquarters, Army Detachment Hollett. I have a note saying, Chol Nipples now takes over 17th Army Corps, but I don't have to say that, it's a waste of time. I can show it in the video itself, and you guys still get the information. Once I've put what Glantz or the main authors are saying in the script, and condensed it down, I can then start to go through the other books and add references, quotes, and more information to flesh out the script. This can be a lot quicker because I don't have to sit there typing out all the information like I did with the more detailed authors. But it can still take time, especially when there's a lot of authors. And when I say authors, I don't just mean secondary sources, I mean primary sources as well. And this is where the whole debate side comes into this. This author said this, and then this other author said this. Who's right, who's wrong? I'll be comparing back and forth to figure out what actually happened. Now, this process is difficult to explain and is more related to history theory, so I'm just going to summarize and say that I question everything and then come to the most logical conclusion. I have done videos on history theory, so I would recommend you watch them for more detail on that. Once I've got all the authors in the script, I then go through it and tie it all together. I make it flow, I then maybe insert a theme for the video, because generally there will be a topic that takes precedence over the others. Manstein's counterattack will definitely be the focus of episode 43, but previously it may have been Halder's arguments with the Madman as a representation of the wider failure of the Axis war effort, or maybe the Kotlebane offensives, or Churikov having a crisis of confidence. These sorts of things can become the focus of the video, and I can try and tie it all up to them. Again, this is something I'm still trying to learn, and it's difficult because the entire scripting process for a Stalingrad video takes me several days, and I want to make people aware. With a few exceptions, I've been researching and creating scripts for videos that are approximately 30 or 40 minutes long since January 1st, 2018. These scripts are roughly 6,000 to 8,000 words long, sometimes more, sometimes less. To put this into context, we weren't allowed to do a dissertation at university, even though I wanted to do one. So the longest essay I wrote at university was 8,000 words, and that was a one-off. Most were like 4,000, maybe 6,000 words. Plus, you only have to turn in an essay once every so often. So I'm doing more than I ever did at university on a monthly basis. Okay, sure, it's not exactly the same, because I often include jokes and comments and whatnot in the videos, but in terms of scripting alone, this is way more work than I ever did at university. Plus, I'm not just researching and writing stuff, I'm also reading the scripts out loud, then animating and editing on top. So in terms of overall workload, it's insane. I currently publish a history video once a week, and the Stalingrad documentaries are every 4 weeks. Before I got an editor, which I've only just recently got, my weekly process looked like this. The first week, I'd be so exhausted from the previous Stalingrad editing that I'd just focus on rest and recovery, whilst also trying to get a video done for the Monday. The second week, I'd start scripting the next Battlestorm video, but would have to stop by the Thursday to make a video for the second Monday, which includes research, scripting, editing, and publishing in about 3 days, maybe a little more. The third week, I'd pick up and hopefully finish the script by the Thursday, because I then have to stop and make a third video for the upcoming Monday and record the Stalingrad video itself. Then I'd edit and animate the video throughout the fourth week. And yes, it takes the full week to do that. I'd then publish and start the process all over again. This is 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, pretty much. I've just had a few days off over Christmas, but prior to that, the last day off I had was during my break for bereavement in August and September. And I'll be honest, during that entire month, I only got about 4 days where I was actually off and able to relax. The weeks where I wasn't able to publish weren't breaks. I was working. I was working every day. Prior to Christmas, as I say, I've not had a full day off since September. So people ask me, why don't I publish more often? And well, it's because I can't. It's physically impossible. I'm at this desk every single day. And even though I've got a new editor, they're not up to speed with Blender yet, which we'll talk about shortly. So this is a treadmill that never stops. Because the Battlestorms have been a priority, the quality of the other videos has taken a hit, and even Stalingrad has taken a hit. In episode 42, I had to rush the recording of it because I had to get ahead with my editor. 266 tons, so there's a huge discrepancy in the sources. 266 tons, so there's a huge discrepancy in the sources. I had to rush because they're now working on episode 43, which I'm now not sure when will be published. But at the time, I had to do the impossible and get a month ahead with the scripts for the Stalingrad series so that they could work on something else. Now I've realised that I need a break from Stalingrad in order to do other videos, so it is what it is. Once the script is finished, I colour parts of it. Black is audio only, voiceover, there's no video. Blue is me sat in this chair. And green is green screen, where I'm in the video itself, usually over a map. I use a teleprompter, which I can set to detect my voice, but that doesn't always work. Sometimes it scrolls too fast, sometimes it scrolls too slow, and sometimes I can't read the damn thing anyway because I'm so tired. Recording a 6,700 word script can take a couple of days, and it also produce a lot of errors. When he reached the Mishkovka River, which is down here, Mishkova, a fuel and ammunition dump at Tatinskaya, and a fuel dump and ammunition dump at Tatinskaya. On the 9th of December, the first victims of starvation were at a time when the division was forced to slaughter over 50 emaciated, and replaced by von Gablenz. Interestingly enough, Colonel Adam himself was relieved the day before, the 10th of December, and replaced by von Gablenz, but failed to get that too. Same with the 303rd. Can't read. Another possible reinforcement for Manstein was the 3rd Motorized Mountain. Then that puts a theoretical limit on the distance the 6th Army can realistically. But let's just think about this for a second. If Manstein admits in his own memoirs that he doesn't think that they will get to the It's not easy when you're staring at a light. And in the end, he only started on the 12th, giving him just 8 days to reach the 6th Army before their food ran out. Once it's all recorded and we remove the background noise in Audacity, we can go into Premiere Pro. Currently, everything but the map animations are done in Premiere Pro, so all the quotes, references and video elements are done in here. But apparently you can now edit videos in Blender. I haven't had a chance to play around with that yet, and I think it's early days for that portion of Blender, but maybe it's something to consider in the future because Adobe is not only expensive, but it sucks. People have asked me why I move upwards into the map during my animations. Why don't I just fade in? Well, the reason why is because there's an error in Premiere Pro that Adobe has known about for about a decade and hasn't ever fixed. If you try and fade a layer that hasn't got 100% opacity, it will make a black outline appear. In some of my early videos of the Stalingrad series, you can see this happen. That's why I had to do the whole elevator movement thing. It's because Adobe likes to neglect its own user base whilst raking in as much money as possible. Why don't Adobe fix critical errors in their software that were reported years ago despite charging each user over £50 a month? Well, the reason why is because if I can find time to figure out Blender's video editing software, and if it's good enough, I'll probably convert over. But while Stalingrad is on, there's no chance. It'll be something to look forward to after Stalingrad is done. All what we've covered so far is about a week's worth of work. And if it was just this, I could probably publish one of these videos every week. But it's not. The animations take another week to make. Before we get to that though, let's discuss the images themselves. The more recent maps I've been using were created by Terry, the graphic designer who does my thumbnails and some of the other graphics, and it took her months to make them. They take that long and are so boring to make that she doesn't actually want to make them anymore. The Stalingrad city map is 67 megabytes and is 16,425 pixels by 31,854 pixels. The region map is only 11,930 by 8,967 pixels, but it's still huge. Technically they are unfinished because I'm still adding village and town names to them as the series progresses. Again, because I can't spare the time to sit there adding every name to the map in one go. I've got to keep publishing videos, so the maps were devoid of place names in the early episodes, but have slowly been filled up as the series progresses. A comment from episode 42 said, "Okay, can we talk about how time consuming it must be to research, edit and put together all these videos? This is professional level editing, meanwhile I can barely put 2 images together in MS Paint. Great job, TIKhistory." Oh yes, it is time consuming. The icons that you see in the videos are either made by me or Terry, who's made a load of them. The units are in their own file structure, separated into various folders. So inside Axis we have divisions, then 24th Panzer Division, which has 3 different commanders. Then inside regiments we've got the various artillery regiments, but then also the Panzer Grenadier regiments themselves. If we click on the 24th Panzer Regiment, we can see the regiments themselves, plus the various battalions and their commanders, sometimes multiple. All the units are created by me in Photoshop, and I've got various options to turn on or off the names, whether it's an armoured or infantry or cavalry unit, the size of the unit, and whether it has a commander or not. The commander images have to be brought in from the internet and then have their surroundings erased so that it looks good. The map, the units, everything are then imported into Blender. Effectively, I'm using a 3D animation software to create 2D animations. Why? Because Blender is better than almost everything else on the market and it's free. You can get it on Steam. Prior to Battlestorm Stalingrad, I actually did almost everything in Premiere Pro, with each unit on a different layer, although originally I used an animation software called Anime Studio Pro. They worked fine when there were only a handful of units on the map, but when it came to Stalingrad, it quickly became impossible. There were hundreds of units on the map, and you just can't do that in Premiere Pro. I had to do the front lines in Blender anyway, and I realised that Blender was far more flexible. So that's when I went full Blender. And that's also why some of the early episodes of Stalingrad look blurry, around about episode 10. I just converted over to doing all the animations in Blender, and the default setting in Blender is to make images look blurry. At first I couldn't find a way to make them look normal. You're probably wondering why the default option in Blender is to make images blurry. The reason why is because... But you can't even import images into Blender by default. You have to enable an add-on, which took me ages to figure out as well. I was trying to make a mesh, then select a texture, and then somehow align it all. It was a nightmare. And I know it sounds stupid, but it took me months to figure out that there's an add-on that allows you to import images and it sets all the sizes for you. You're probably wondering why the default option in Blender is to not allow the importing of images, and the reason why is because... So anyway, I set Premiere Pro to show its frames and work through every frame of the video. It's difficult to explain, but you're only animating movement. If there's no movement, then it's just a still frame. Only when there's movement do you have to animate. So, for example, let's say I was talking over the map like this. What you see in the background now is just a still image that's been stretched out over the timeline. But I've decided that I want to have a speech bubble pop up from this unit. So in Blender, I'll set it to 25 frames, I'll position the speech bubble where I want it at the end of those frames, keyframe it to say this is where it needs to be at this time, then I'll go to frame 1, shrink it down and keyframe it again. Then, when I play the animation, the speech bubble will pop up. After rendering, I'll import the footage into Premiere Pro as an image sequence, but also have the first and final frames as separate still images. I'll take frame 1 and put it on the timeline, then have the image sequence positioned at the end, and then have the final frame afterwards so that it looks right. This saves a lot of rendering because we've only rendered 25 frames, but can cover a significant portion of the video as I'm talking over it. But it rapidly gets complicated when you have a lot of units on the field of battle with the front lines moving and tons of things going on. The machine guns and explosions are image sequences in Blender itself that repeat over and over, and I have the machine guns move with the units, which isn't too bad, but the explosions have to be positioned manually, taking a lot of time to actually put in there. The front lines are a Bezier curve, which is slightly different than the units or whatever else. While Blender does allow you to edit the vertices of the curve, it doesn't allow you to animate them by default. Again, you have to use an add-on called Animall, without which it would be almost impossible to do the front lines, and it took me a while to find out that Animall even existed. You might ask, why are you not allowed to animate vertices in Blender without an add-on? And then also, why does the add-on sometimes uninstall itself when Blender does one of its frequent updates, so I have to go in and reinstall them all? Well, the reason why is because... So, now I've given you a bird's eye overview, let's do an example animation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the camera and the camera aim, and I'm going to move them over here to, let's say, this position here. And just so you know, the camera doesn't pick up anything that's around it, it's only what's within the rectangle. So if I press to render now, it will only render out what's within the camera, what's within the rectangle. Okay, so let's just say hypothetically, Danilov's rifle division moves back over here in the face of these 3 Axis units. Thus, we're going to set this to say 300 frames, just to keep it simple. And what I'll do is I'll select these 4 units and say, keyframe, I want you to be in this location on frame 1. And then we're going to also select the front lines. I'm going to edit mode, which will allow us to select the vertices. I'm going to select all the vertices and keyframe them using Animall. To say, yes, please be in this location here, and the same again with the axis line. So they're all located to say, frame 1, this is the position I want you to be. We'll zoom over to frame 300, and we'll move Danilov back over here. We'll go here. And we will also, do the same thing with the front lines. We'll move them like so. Shrink that down a bit. And obviously this is just an example, so it doesn't really matter, it's all fiction anyway. But you can see this can take a while just to move a front line. I'll do it off screen just to make sure. So that one's done, and then this one we're going to move as well. We don't want them clipping over, so and this is a thing as well, I'm not an expert when it comes to Blender. So if anyone is an expert and can think of a way to make the front lines, so I'm using 2 separate front lines here. I wonder if there is a way of just using 1, but displaying the 2, if that makes sense. So if there is a way, because that would speed up the process a little bit. If there is a way, let me know. I'm going to move these down here as well. We'll move this one here, and we'll move this one here. What we'll also do now is select these. Let's just select them again. And that one, we'll locate them. And we also need to locate them, the front lines as well, so I'll just quickly do that. Okay, so let's play the animation. And now you can see they move between frame 1 and 300. And they automatically slow down because that's how the settings work. But it's not perfect. If you look at this front line, it goes all over the place. This doesn't look good. It's like If we go to frame 150, there's a massive gap here, and then this is kind of, it's not quite touching this, but it doesn't look good. So what we need to do is just correct this to make sure the animation flows correctly. So I'm going to just move this one. We'll shrink this down, I guess, and then we'll move that one like that. And then keyframe. So, whoops, made it invisible by accident. Let's see what happens. Okay, it's kind of touching that one now, so we will correct that as well. That's an easy fix. We'll just move that like that. Keyframe again. And now, yeah. Okay, it's not perfect. If this was actually me animating this for real, I'd make it a little bit better, but that's okay. That'll do for now. Now, of course, we need what? Machine guns. We can't just have units moving, we need machine guns. Now the way I've set this up is there is a machine gun folder, and within the machine gun folder there's 2 additional folders in here as well. We've got machine gun firing, currently there's nothing in it, and that will render out machine guns. Whereas machine gun stop is anything that's in this folder won't render out. It's visible, but you can't see them when you render. So this machine gun, for example, is machine gun stop. If I was to render this now, which I will do, just to show you an example, it doesn't appear. Whereas if I take it, let's go down the list. I don't know where it is. It's probably right at the bottom. Yes, it is. We will come all the way to the top and put it in machine gun firing. Now when I render out, it is visible. So anything that's in machine gun firing is visible. So what I'm going to do is select the other 3 machine guns here and find them. Here they are, and I'm going to put them into machine gun firing. This is actually a new method. There was a different method, but my editor was like, no, let's not do it that way. It's too complicated. This one's a bit easier. So this is a new method we're trying out. But anyway, so yes, now we've got the machine guns in this position. What I can do is turn off machine gun stop, and so that none of the others are having to play, which will make it go a bit quicker. But you'll notice the frame rate now drops to really low. But it's okay. It's looking okay. There's a couple of problems with it. We'll wait for it to do a whole thing. So yeah, there's a couple of problems. If you notice, first off, they've gone purple because, yeah, if they're blank, they'll go purple for some reason. Good old Blender. First thing, on frame 1, this machine gun is already firing. We don't want it already firing, so I'm going to go into the material tab and correct it so that it starts on frame 1 not firing, and then we'll start firing as it goes. So now it's started firing, and that's okay. But when we get to the end, we've got this one still firing and this one still firing. We don't want that. So, okay, so a couple of frames before, this one's actually blank, so I'm going to say be visible on this frame, and then the next frame be invisible, so that it will end the sequence invisible. And this one, the same thing. We'll go back a few frames. Okay, it goes down to a little thing, so we'll say be visible, next frame, don't be visible. So now they'll all stop by frame 300. And yeah, they'll stop. Another thing as well, this machine gun is aiming at this, but by frame 300 he's kind of aiming off. He's not actually aiming at Danilov. This one's not too bad, but again, it's just kind of missing. So what I'm going to do is say on frame 1, these 2, I want you guys to be in this rotation, and then at the end I want you guys to sort of rotate your machine guns to aim more at Danilov, and I'll keyframe that. So now they do, it's subtle, but they are changing direction and actually aiming at it. We could make it better actually. What we could do, as the example, just purely for an example, what I could do, if I'll delete the keyframes. Just to give you an example here, I will delete the keyframes. So let's say, how will this work? Let's say it was a bit further away. And then, whoops, that's the wrong one. We'll do location and rotation. And let's say it moved and it was over here. So it was closer to Georgie. So now it's definitely, so it's kind of moving, but it's definitely not aiming at Danilov now. He's firing over here somewhere. So that's obviously not a good thing. So what we'll say is you're in this rotation, and at the end you need to move to that rotation, and now it will follow Danilov more or less. So that's how you would do this scene. Now the problem is, I mean, I could go make this really complicated. I could have like machine guns, not machine guns, explosions. I could have aircraft coming in. I could do all this other weird and wonderful stuff. But just to keep it simple, I'm not going to do all that because it's already been like 9 minutes of me showing you how to do this simple animation. So what we'll do now is set everything up to render. Now if I render now, well, it's gone purple because it's annoying, but you'll see that the front lines are not see-through. Now you can we just stop that purple, please? Good old Blender with the purple. You can go into here and say, please be opaque, and that will do it, but it causes other issues on the corners. When there's a corner, it'll start doing this, I don't know, weird thing where it'll be darker and it'll just look silly. Let me see if I can give you an example. Let's find an example. It probably will do it here. Yeah, you can kind of already see it. It's doing this weird and wonderful, don't know, diamond thing. And so it doesn't look good. So let's just move this back over here. So what I'm going to... Was that the right position? Probably not. I'll move it here. In fact, what we can do is animate the camera while we're at it. So we'll get the camera to move along with... There we go. It's moving along with it now. But yeah, the front line, it won't look right if it was just opaque. It needs to be done differently. And so the workaround is to keep them at full strength in terms of opacity, but change things and use a compositor, which I'll show you now. So the way we do this is we get rid of everything but the top layer, which is just the units and the machine guns in this case, and then create a whole new scene and call it middle. Get rid of the top layer, put the middle in, which just shows the front lines. Bottom. So now we've got 3 scenes. Bottom is the bottom, is just the map. Middle is just the front lines, and top is everything else. And so in the compositor, I can, yeah, I'm not going to explain this. This is way too complicated. But yeah, this is what you call nodes. And I've set it up to say that the middle layer will be partly visible, 70% visible. So what I'll do is top, middle, and bottom. And now, when we render, it'll do this. So you can kind of see through it, and that will prevent that diamondy thing going on with the front lines. So yeah, that's how I set it up. I'm just going to turn them so you can actually see it, but it won't render. So that's how I would animate, in this case, a simple thing. So what I'll do is I'll render it out, which will take a while, and then I will import it into Blender, into Premiere Pro, and we'll go through the rest of it. Once Blender has rendered out, it'll give me a bunch of PNG image files. So what I'll do is import the lot of them as an image sequence file, which I've set to create proxies in Premiere Pro. I'll also bring in the first and final frames as well. Then I can insert these on the timeline and play it back. Frequently, Premiere Pro will lock up as it's playing back the footage, and I'll have to close down the window and reopen it before it'll play again. It's really frustrating, and I'm using proxies, so it's not that. Plus, other people complain about the same issue online. Why hasn't Adobe fixed this error despite knowing about it for years? Well, it's for the same reason as why I'm juggling these invisible balls. By the way, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to software issues and errors, but I'm including some examples here because it's not as straightforward as "just move some units, bro." Things go wrong all the time. Another error is that Premiere Pro won't accept certain PNG files. It just straight up will reject them. So I have to re-render in Blender. I haven't got an example to give here because it's maybe once or twice a video that it'll do it. So it's a rare enough event that I'm not going to sit here trying to replicate it. But the list of problems between Premiere Pro and Blender is ridiculous. It's taken me years to get used to Blender, but my new editor is struggling with it. It's just brutal. Another example is how, by default, you can't fade images out. You have to create a node group that will allow you to do it, which I've done here, but even then, that won't let you fade it out over time by default. They'll just clip out of existence. You have to change the setting here to make it fade out properly. But, software issues aside, going through the script and actually animating the video does make the battle come to life. When you're reading a book, it's very difficult to imagine all that's going on in your head, so errors creep into the narrative. When I try and put what the authors write on the screen, it's often the case that the narrative doesn't match the physical reality. It's difficult to give examples of this, but in each episode I'll discover one or a dozen errors in the narrative that have been corrected. People accuse me of just reading Glance out loud. But that's not at all what's happening. I've often corrected Glance's errors, or disagreed with him in the unit placements because it physically doesn't make sense when you view it on the map. There have been times where I've spent an hour trying to figure out exactly what happened on the map and then deciding the best way to show it to you. All this is to say that it takes me an entire week for me to animate a Stalingrad video. So, the research, scripting, and recording is 1 week, and the animation alone is a full week. And when I say a full week, I'm talking 60 hours. People then ask, well, why don't you just publish, Battlestorm videos more often, like every week? Because it takes 2 weeks to make one. And that's only if I'm working 60-hour weeks and I'm not producing any other videos. If I have to produce any other videos, it'll take longer, which is why they were every 4 weeks, and it's been a struggle for me to do them in that time. I'll be honest, I should have made a decision to go bi-weekly years ago, or just not publish the Stalingrad videos as often as I did, but I'm stupid and stubborn, and don't want to let you guys down, even though I have done now, so I work, and then live in constant burnout. Now, you might say, well, you've got an editor now. And yes, except that they're not up to speed, and even if they were, there's a problem. When I'm animating, I'm constantly looking at the script and trying to make heads or tails of what's happening. A lot of the time, because I have the units on the map, I can spot errors in the sources. An author might say such and such a regiment when it is in fact a brigade. In that case, I'll correct the script and re-record that segment. Or there will be a debate regarding a certain area of the battle, or how it played out, and by physically having the units and map laid out, it makes it a lot easier to see how things went down. As I'm animating, I'm constantly trying to compare the script to the map and trying to interpret the events. So I'm interpreting as I'm going along. But the editor can't do that. They're not trained in history. So there's actually an extra step now, which is a screenplay of what I want to happen at a given point in the video. I take the script and give instructions to the editor, who then tries their best to make my instructions a reality. I provide them with instructions for Blender, but also screenshots of how I want things to progress on the map. There are several benefits to this extra step. I can get partway through and then realise that some units are incorrectly positioned, or new units need to be added in earlier, or commanders need changing from the start. But it's largely a waste of my time. As Terry said to me when I originally proposed that she do the animations for me, by the time you've told me what to do, you may as well have done it yourself. And that's true, there is a time save for them doing the Premiere Pro stuff, getting the video in order, and putting in the references. But the animations are my biggest time sink. I'm spending 1 week out of every 4 animating, rather than doing what I'm good at, history. And even with the new editor, it doesn't get around the problem. I have to do a screenplay that takes days to make anyway. This is a major issue, which I'm not sure how to solve. I can't expect anyone else to interpret the script the way I would. They're not me, they won't interpret things like I do, and a screenplay takes too long to make. This is also why I can't hire a research assistant or anything like that. Again, they won't interpret the sources or events the same way I will. History really is a one-man band, and if I was doing really basic videos like gaming or vlogging videos, yeah, an editor would save a lot of time. But the Battlestorms require me to be there every step of the way, or at least that's how it seems right now. A couple of minor points regarding editing. I have used B-roll on occasion. I mean, I've used it throughout this video, but since the majority of my videos are about history, with a focus on the maps or discussion of events, it's difficult to apply B-roll effectively. People have asked why I only use still images and don't use stock footage from the war, but YouTube's copyright system is broken and I don't want to risk it. Once everything is edited, I then try and find a place to put my Patreon and subscribe star lists. Premiere Pro absolutely hates scrolling lists for some reason, so the computer usually hangs when I try and edit them. There's just too many names, which is a nice first world problem to have. There was a brilliantly timed comment in last week's Battlestorm video where a viewer said, "One of the things I love about Tik's vids, there isn't 2 minutes of ads or 5 minutes of schlepping 1 square foot of land in Scotland." Yes, and Terry asked me a few weeks back why I don't do sponsors, since I could make a fair bit of money doing them, so as I replied to this viewer, I want my videos to stand the test of time, so I made the decision years ago that I don't want sponsors in the video or merch because I was thinking long term. Yes, these videos will be outdated in a few years as new evidence and theories emerge, but people can look back on them and enjoy them for what they are. In 50 years' time, today's bars of soap and pay-to-win RPGs will be completely forgotten, but Stalingrad won't be, and hopefully this series won't be either. That's probably the main reason, but the second reason is because my patrons and subscribe stars support me. They're the reason I'm not droning on about paid shallow leg ends in every video. I mean, who's playing that game anyway? So yes, I could make more money doing sponsorships or whatnot, but I'd rather you guys send me $1 a month via Patreon, and then you can get your names in the videos. I think that's a better deal for everyone anyway. Because in theory, when Stalingrad's completed, you'll have the longest Stalingrad documentary ever made. No one's going to be stupid or insane enough to do one longer. So you'll have your names in a piece of history itself. Yeah, it'll be out of date in a few years, but people will look back on this and be like, oh wow, these people supported Tik. That's awesome. One final thing I'll mention comes from one of the patrons who asked me to do this behind the scenes video in the first place. Vicious asked if I could talk about the music I have in my documentaries. My first documentary, Market Garden, used royalty-free music that I got online. The tracks were listed in that video's description, but because of the stupidity of the broken YouTube copyright system, I decided to create my own music. I therefore purchased Fruity Loops Studio and just got a bunch of drum sounds and whatnot online. I have a guitar and I've read up on music theory, but I'm not trained in classical type music, nor do I have much experience when it comes to music editing. Nonetheless, it was all background music anyway, so I just made a bunch of fun sounding looping tunes that I thought would be good for certain scenarios, like when Auchinleck or the other generals were on screen. Or when there's a rapid advance. I've got specific songs for topics, like for when I'm talking about Russia. There's the Operation Crusader theme tune, a video of which you can find public on the channel, link in the description. Several people also asked me about the song currently playing right now, thinking I'd pulled it from somewhere on the internet. No, it's a song I created myself for the Operation Crusader series, which I titled Logistics. Since it's the one song people asked about, I've uploaded it as another unpublished video in the description. These were all loops and were just meant to be in the background, so they probably don't stand up on their own. However, it would take me about a day to actually find or create the right tunes and then put them in the videos. Well, people complained not about the tunes themselves, but about how the music was distracting them from enjoying the videos. So several videos into the Stalingrad series, I just stopped putting music in them. It saves me time, stops people moaning, win-win. Now I think music enhances the visual experience, but apparently I'm in the minority. Either way, though, I can't give you a rundown of music theory in this video, so I'll just sum it up by saying, use Fruity Loops, create a beat, use the natural minor scale to create a catchy tune, and then fill in the rest. That's pretty much the process for how I produce Battlestorm videos. In some ways, I'm jealous of the other channels who can get away with "Tiger Tank is good tank," and then somehow get 1 million views. For them, the editing is a lot easier and less hands-on. They're the smart people. I'm the dumb people. I decided that I wanted to make the best and most accurate battle documentaries that I could make. I wanted to make the documentaries that I wish I'd seen as a kid. I wanted to go that extra mile. And so I don't just want to do some wishy-washy videos where I repeat the same stuff everyone else has already heard 100 times before. I wanted to rock the boat and say, yes, we can do real history in video format. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.